by. This video is endearingly entitled Where Did My Bonsai Go? Now, coming up any minute now, there's an info card which will be in your top right hand corner. I know some devices can't see these, but I'll put a link in the description as well to the video that I did earlier this year with these two maples before they leafed out, basically. So it was just tidying up the weeds on the pot, taking a bit of the surface off, and a trim just to get the shape ready for the leaves to come out. Well, the leaves have come out now and my bonsai's disappeared, so we're going to have a go at reclaiming it. Now what's happened is each of the layers has grown up and down, so the gaps have gone, and that's really all I'm trying to do, is recover the gaps. So first of all we find where the branch is, and then we just snip the leaves that are hanging down into the gap. And once you've done a bit, you can then see where you are, and it becomes clearer what you're up to. So again, once I've got the ones hanging down gone, I can clip the ones that are sticking up, the ones that have taken the shape away, basically. So we're looking for things sticking up in the air now. So it's only a rough tidy. I mean, this is not true bonsai pruning. It's just, you know, an early summer tidy, really, just to bring some shape back. And this will induce more shoots, which will thicken the whole tree up. So that's the general idea. I can see round the back there's some really long growths that have sort of come right round the back of the trunk. As you can see. Massive amount of growth. So all I'm doing is taking it back to roughly the outline that I want. Not exactly the outline that I want. I'm not being that fussy at the moment. Just some stuff hanging down here that's losing access to the trunk. And come back in a month's time and it won't look like I did this. It'll all be back where it was before. So now we've got the next branch up. I'm sticking to one side at the moment. So now we've got the next branch up. And again, we've got stuff that's hanging down that's stopping the view of that branch. I hope you can see this is a new camera angle. I've got the tripod as high as it'll go, and it's sort of looking over my shoulder, because looking at the tree from the side, which is what I normally do, people say they can't really see anything. Well, something's better than nothing. That's the way I'm looking at it. So right, so that branch, I've got far too much hanging out the back here. And once I've done, I'll do the traditional before and after bit. Which is easy enough with my software. I'm going to just go back to the beginning of the video and do a snapshot, and that becomes a still, and then do another one at the end and put them side by side. And it's before and after. Easy enough to do. Right, so that's that little branch there. It does sort of cross over the next one, but I'm not particularly worried about that. Right, so we come back round to our front view. Now I'm looking, because I've now seen, I can see my layers again now, yeah? So what I want now is the fact that the bottom branch needs to be bigger than the next one up. So the next one up now gets taken back quite hard. I'll just have a look, make sure it's still sort of rounded. There we go, that's that. I'll leave the apex till last. There's a little forward facing branch here that I'm still not sure I'm keeping, but I'm keeping it for now. Right, so we can see our trunk again. with the video hopefully that you watched earlier from the info card, the two maples are easily differentiated because one's got these lovely markings on the trunk and the other one's quite a craggy trunk, so that they are quite different. The leaves look very similar, quite honestly, but not the right. Now we've got our lower branch over here, and this is the one we had the accident with and broke it trying to bend it down, and we did a repair on it. Which you can now see because I've taken a few leaves out of the way. Trying to get a balance here. So there we are, we can see that branch now. Sorry, layer, branch, whatever you want to call it. And we've got this little one round the back that's crossing over, so I'll open up the gap between the two again. There's a thing with bonsai that once you get very dense pads, this happens far less often because the growths will be smaller and more compact, and providing you keep at it, every time a new growth pushes out, pinch it off, you get tighter and tighter and tighter, and as the years go on the leaves will progressively get smaller as well. And the smaller the leaves, the larger the tree looks, because they become in proportion. You know, if you've got a 3-foot high tree with a 6-inch leaf on it, it just looks like a young tree. Right, now all I'm going to do is hack the top. This is unstoppable on this particular variety of maple, whatever it is, I don't know, it's just an Acer palmatum hybrid of some sort. The bark might, in theory, be able to actually identify which one it is, if I could be bothered to go and look it up, which so far I have never bothered. But the apex on this, it's an apical dominant type of maple, I think is the expression, if I've got that right. It just means that the tree tries to push the apex all the time and doesn't put as much energy into the sides. So you can hack the top as hard as you like and it'll just grow back. It'll grow back hardly before you've put it back outside where it goes. Right, let's just get the loose leaves off best we can. If I come round in 3 or 4 days' time, those loose leaves that I've missed will be shrivelling. Yeah, and they'll show up really easily, and if the wind doesn't get them, I can. So there we are, that's its basic shape back again. Simple trim with an ordinary pair of scissors, that's not even a bonsai tool, it's just a pair of kitchen scissors basically. But because it's got nice comfortable handles and it's got very long blades, you can cut an awful lot with one snip. Whereas if I use my smaller pruning shears, it's got comfortable handles, yes, but look how many, look how much you cut. I'd be here all day, I'd have handache by now. Right, so that's that one. We've got our layer back here, we've got our layer back here, we've got slight interruption on the trunk with this little branch, which should now develop a bit more. We've got a shape back here, that's our repair, that's not getting touched till next year, basically, where we broke the branch. And I've noticed this year the coloration on the trunk is starting to be a bit more apparent. Yeah? So, it's becoming more of a feature. And as it's a bit of a feature, we don't want it hidden behind a load of leaves. So we've got our basic shape and gaps. And sometimes on bonsai, the gaps are almost as important as the structure, as the layers, especially on maples. Right, I'll shut down now and I'll go and get the other one. We'll do the other one while I'm at it. I'll be back. Right, this one's even worse. It's just a bush. You can still just about sort of see what's going on here, but it has got a bit, it's grown a bit, which is good. Yeah. So again, what I'm looking for is the second branch up, so that I can take off what's hanging down and see what I'm doing. And then I can see what's sticking up, if you see what I mean, which is quite a bit on this one. It's another one of these branches that could do with pulling down there, which I could do with a wire around the hole of the pot, but I don't want to go too mad. As I saw, I tried doing it on one of them earlier in the year and it promptly snapped on me. Now that was lucky because it really cracked, it didn't snap, if you know what I mean. And as a consequence, I still had something that I could glue back together. That could have been quite a disaster. That could have been one of my main branches broken off and gone. I mean, with maples you can be pretty horrendously hard line with them and they will pull back. I've got a lower branch here. I could actually cut the whole tree off just above that branch and then basically twist the trunk over, lift that branch up and make the first branch the new trunk and the branches coming off of that the tree, and discard all of that. With a maple you'd be a fool to discard an amount like that because you could turn it into an air layer and have a whole new bonsai tree, which has not been ruled out. As I said, these trees, as they get older, they will start to work better. But at the moment, most of this is going on the floor. At the moment, the trunk, the first branch is a bit high up the trunk, so the trunk's a bit long for the height of the tree. Two ways you can get around that: let the tree grow taller and get it a bit more in proportion, or just patiently wait because the trunk will thicken up as the years go on, which is what I'm doing. So I quite like the overall height of the tree. Right, so we can see our first branch and our first gap again for about 3 weeks and then it'll fill up. Right, over here, again I'm going to have to come in here on the higher branch first so that I can see where the bits are sticking up. And it just opens up the gap. That's all I'm trying to do is, you know, where is my bonsai? Come back. Whoops. I'm going to cut a great big branch like that with a pair of scissors, that's for sure. Now some leaves are getting cut in half, some are getting cut in the wrong place, you know, too close to the leaf node, all that sort of thing. Doesn't matter, it's all going to grow again. This time of year, these things are unstoppable. Just go mad. Right, how's that branch that side doing? That's a bit better, still a bit high, down a bit. Right, so we've got our first gap back, now we've got our second gap back. I'm just trying to work out what that is. Don't know. Right, and then on this tree, I only really have 2 branches off the trunk, the rest of it is the apex. Even though it splits into several places, so really we're looking at, that's the width of the tree, so from there on in it should come in a bit. Now on this side that's quite easy to do. You just round it off basically. Just to keep that overall sort of dome shape. But what would be nice on this one is if I could take enough leaves off to see the centre of the apex through the gaps. I don't know whether I'm going to be able to do it. This thing just, it's another one of those that the apex just goes mad. Just becomes a bush as a consequence. Oof. See, sometimes when you prune before it leaves out, you know, just as the leaves are starting to move, that's the traditional way to get the shape the way you want it. at that time, it takes a long time because you're a lot fussier, because you can see the branch structure and you sort of think, I'll go back to that little bit and I'll go back to that little bit. But if you stop and think what you're probably going to do later in the year, when you're not fussy at all, it's just a hack. And I'm not looking at where I'm looking at the overall shape, not the individual cuts. And if that's what's going to happen later in the year, do you really need to be that fussy at the start of the year? God, blimey. Starting to get arm ache now. The trouble is I'm working then. I should be a little bit taller, or the tree should be a little bit lower. I'm working at my maximum stretch here. Right, that's probably about it. So now let's see if we can work on that can I see through. I don't think I'm going to be able to do much about that. Nice to see some of that structure of the apex through some little gaps. Do much. Oh well, it's worth a thought. Now, how are we doing then? Overall shape. Let's see if we can get the dead leaves off. Oops. And then occasionally what you do is you've been hacking away and then you suddenly find something like that. It's just miles too long. Those big, long, elongated growths, all they do is sap the strength. Unless you need them for the overall shape of your tree, then they're better off. Better off. Does that make sense? Because all they do is sap the strength. And later down the line, when you're starting to fine tune your tree, you can cut them off. You'll cut them right back and try and make them shoot out. So letting them go will increase the trunk size and or branch size, depending on whereabouts on the tree they actually are. So they can be used for that, in which case they're like a sacrificial branch. The only reason you're leaving them there is to thicken something up. Nothing else, you're not going to keep them. And I've seen trees with like a 7-8 foot branch, which is a sacrificial branch. It's going to be sawn off eventually, it's so big. But it's there to thicken something up because they draw the sap. The bigger they get, the more sap they draw. Right, something like that. See my trunk. As you can see, this one's got quite a gnarly bark to it. Quite attractive really. That will get better and better as time goes on. And my base, Nabari, is getting better on this one. But relatively, as bonsai go, this is still a young tree. Both of these maples were bought from Colette, Southampton Trees, who I had a chat with at the expo, and he's getting married and moving house, I think, for the second time recently. So she's not where she was anyway. Yeah, they came from Colette as second year seedlings, so they were about 8-9 inches in little tiny square pots, and that's what I started with. And they've grown on into this so far. But as I said, we've got quite a long piece of trunk here with no branch. It would have been much nicer if that one was lower down. Yeah, but you know, you're stuck with what you got, and you work with what you've got. So as far as this one is concerned, it's never going to be a brilliant bonsai because it's only really got 2 branches and an apex. But that's how it is. But at least now we can see it again. You know, it's not just a bush anymore. So there we go. An early summer trim. These two may well get another trim a bit later on, but if you do, pruning this time of year will generate a lot more growth, and it will be smaller growth. The leaves will be smaller. I mean, if you're preparing a maple for a show, some people take every single leaf off. It's got to be a strong tree or it may not survive. But you take every single leaf off, take them all back, and the shoots that come out have quite tiny leaves on them. So if you're going for a show, I wouldn't personally dream of defoliating a tree in its entirety. I wouldn't do that to a tree because of the risk element, you know. So there we go. Just taking the under edge of that off because I forgot. Right, so that's those two done. The next one I will probably do a similar thing to is my Dishojo, which is my biggest maple by a lot. We may do a similar thing to that, because that's got quite a reasonable shape. It's probably my best tree. Anyway, that's those two done. It's just a early summer trim to get the shape back, because it was lost. And now we've got something resembling a bonsai, although as I said, this one's never going to be a good one. It's not enough branches, needed more. So, see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.